Welcome to our manual paint gun cleaning video. In this video, Rob is going to show how to manually clean a paint gun. Rob's come from the booth and is going to take the cup off. So what he's doing is making sure the vent is open while he squeezes the cup, then closes the vent, and then you can remove the cup by pulling the trigger. And when the trigger is pulled, it will suck in any residual paint because of a vacuum that was created. If you're to refill the cup, you could refill it, put it back on the gun, go back to the booth, and then you're not spilling any paint. Now Rob is actually cleaning the gun, not reusing it, so he is taking the cup off. Rob was using water-based paint, so he's rinsing the gun out with water into a waste pail to collect it. The idea is to rinse out the residual material from the gun until it comes out relatively clear. This will save in the cleaning efforts later on once the gun is disassembled. Use the appropriate cleaner. So if you're using solvent-based products, use a lacquer thinner or gun wash. Now Rob is taking off the air cap from the paint gun, putting it into a cleaning container. Next, he is taking out the needle. So he'll take the needle out, and there's always a spring inside. Make sure you don't lose the spring. Once he's taken the needle and the air cap off, then it's onto the fluid tip using the appropriate wrench. So you'll see here with these other guns, we have an Iwata. Make sure if you use an Iwata, you use the Iwata gun wrench. And the same thing with the Tekna and DeVilbiss. Tekna and DeVilbiss has its own gun wrench, and make sure you use this tool. Otherwise, you will damage the fluid tip, especially on the Tekna. So back to our SATA that Rob is cleaning here. So Rob has the appropriate SATA tool to remove the fluid tip. Once he removes the fluid tip, that will also be placed in the container for cleaning. Now what Rob is going to do is rinse out the gun body to continue to remove any residual material from inside or outside the gun. You'll also notice there's an array of different brushes here that Rob can use. So we can use brushes. Some of them are like pipe cleaners, and they go very well inside the paint gun body to help remove any residual material. Now you'll notice here with the waterborne we have two cleaners. One container is filled with water, and you'll see here at the school we've put a piece of blue tape around the water, and then on the other container it's some yellow tape, and the one with the yellow tape contains acetone. The reason we use acetone sometimes when cleaning water-based material is that water alone may not be strong enough, especially if the material started to dry. So acetone, being a slightly stronger solvent, will help dissolve and remove any water-based materials. If absolutely needed when cleaning a waterborne gun, you can use lacquer thinner or gun wash after the gun has been cleaned and dried to remove any stubborn residual material. What we want to avoid doing when cleaning paint guns, however, is using paint stripper. Some people may wind up with dirty paint guns and they may choose to use paint stripper on the gun, maybe let it sit for a while. However, we want to avoid that by using proper gun cleaning. The paint stripper can damage seals and other components inside the gun and may even remove coatings on certain paint guns. Back to Rob, he is rinsing out the air cap here, and you can see he's using some small brushes to clean it out. If the orifice holes in the air cap are dirty, use a toothpick or something soft to clean it out. If you notice, Rob looked up at the light, making sure that he can see through those orifice holes to ensure that they are indeed clean. If the orifice holes are not cleaned and they do clog easily with some materials, you will definitely have problems with the paint gun later on. It will not atomize the material correctly and may spray in one direction or the other if only one side of the holes are clogged. Rob is currently cleaning the fluid tip, which also has very small holes. We have to make sure that they stay clean. So Rob is using some brushes in here and doing a very nice job making sure to remove all residual material. So now that Rob has most of the components cleaned, and he's checking these components out to make sure they are clean enough, he's going to start reassembly. So you'll see that Rob right now has a tube of gun lube. Gun lubricant is used to lubricate a few of the moving components on the gun to make sure that they move freely and do not stick, which would be very problematic when using the paint gun. And if you are storing the gun for a while, it'll prevent the gun from sticking in storage. The lubricant that is used is designed not to contaminate the paint, but should only be used in the specified areas, as you will see shortly with Rob lubricating the needle. It may also be used if there is another needle valve used for the trigger. Some guns do not use one. They will control that airflow with one singular needle, depending on the gun design. So Rob is doing a nice job making sure the body is cleaned off. You do tend to get overspray on the gun, especially when you're spraying close to a vehicle. So check the body and anywhere along the gun, behind the trigger for example, could be missed, to make sure you remove any residue. If you do like Rob here and clean all these components off, you will have a nice clean gun that will last you a very long time. Rob is starting to reassemble, so he is starting off by putting in the fluid tip and threading this in by hand. Once he has it threaded all the way by hand, he will use the wrench to snug it up. Be careful, especially on this version of Satagun, not to over tighten it. This particular version of Satagun has a nylon seal that's easily squished and damaged. It's better to leave it on the looser side, and when you go and set up your paint gun, if you do have a loose fluid tip, you can tighten it, and you'll notice that by sputtering. You'll see Rob applied the paint gun lube as discussed on the needle and is inserting the needle into the gun body. Following the insertion of the needle, he is also installing the spring and the nut for the back of the needle. Rob is putting a little bit of lube on the spring to help that spring last and of course prevent any sticking in that area. It can be a little bit tricky to install the nut on the back since the spring will be pushing some force on that nut. So be careful and be prepared, because sometimes the nut or spring can pop out and it may go flying somewhere and could be hard to find. So you'll see Rob is taking his time, being very careful to install the nut on the back of the gun body. Once he has the nut started on there, this particular gun also has a locking nut, so you can set the locking nut so that the adjustment for the needle does not move. So he's started to snug up that nut, and he only needs to do this by hand. Refer to your gun chart later when setting the gun up. Ideally, do not put too much tension on the spring when storing the gun. It could wear the spring out. Now Rob is double checking the body and cleaning off any other residual material that he's seen on there using some more water or acetone and of course a towel to wipe the gun off. Once he is done with this, then it's a matter of installing the air cap and then having one final inspection of the paint gun. So now the gun is fully assembled. Rob is triple checking to make sure it is clean and up to standard. And you may want to wipe the gun as you put it away because there may be residue on your gloves that gets back onto the paint gun. Now let's have a closer inspection of what a clean gun looks like. So we're going to look at a few specific areas briefly. Just to note, this gun is actually about 4 or 5 years old at the time of this video and very well used. No signs of paint residue anywhere. You cannot tell which color was sprayed in it last. Thank you.